So we start by doing a complete and total restoration package, and it's a total methodology that we've developed over the years to fully restore Neve consoles and also give them some improvements without straying from the original Neve design intent at all, to improve the noise floor for modern digital recording in the modern format. And so what we do when we start out, fully inspect the entire console, see what's there, document any modifications that have happened over the years, which are very often somewhat interestingly done, let's say, and always non-documented in the manual, so it's very hard to have any idea of just reading from the documentation what it may have happened to the console over the years. And invariably we end up taking a lot of, or most of that stuff out. If it was a good mod, you know, that helps the functionality and was done with original Neve design intent and original componentry, it may stay, but very often we find we are removing all of that and restoring them to original operation. And then there is some modifications as well that you can do to the original consoles to enhance the functionality for the modern recording environment in terms of modern workflows and signal flows, which weren't really planned for or used at all back then. So the consoles tend to work in a specific way from the factory, and that, you know, can be properly changed using original Neve design principles. And anything that we do uses does use the original Neve design intent, original componentry, wiring, wire tags, and so we do get quite thorough on it. So I'm going to start after the inspection removing all the modules. These modules have already had some work done to them. They were actually just here for illustration purposes, but after these are all removed, you can see there a common issue on the old frames that we find over and over again. That module is missing the slider guide rails that fit in. They're old, the plastic dries up, and what happens is they actually break off and they'll start hanging off. So there is brand new ABS replacements available that are actually from the same exact supplier that supplied the original componentry in the first place to Neve, and we do order those and replace them all when we do a console. So after we take all the modules out, we fully blow out all the dust from the console, clean and wash everything down. Well, wipe it down really with damp rags. Of course, you don't want to go spraying water in there unless you have a very, very long time to let it dry out. And generally speaking, the cleaning portion takes hours and hours and hours, and is often a good majority of the time spent on restoring the consoles. There's very specific procedures and materials to be used. You don't want to go just spraying any old thing in there or any untested cleaner. We stick with the original Neve factory recommendations in terms of the type of cleaning to be done. Generally speaking, a lot of it is just distilled water and hard work. And this is an original 1066 module. It's actually currently missing the output card. That would have been a 183 card in this case. It's over on the bench undergoing further repairs. We take all the modules out and then individually clean them out of the console, change all the electrolytic capacitors, test all the other components, change anything that's out of spec, and then we fully test the modules individually on a bench test rig. We give the modules a thorough cleaning, remove all of the cards, properly clean those with a non-chemical process. The cards slide out individually, for servicing purposes as well. Of course, that introduces a connector on every card in the signal path. Sometimes they become an issue, but very rarely they're quite high retention, as you can see. So we clean the contacts and the edges with a non-chemical process that works very, very well. Clean the connectors as well. Change any of the capacitors. This module has already been recapped. Check over any of the other components. Clean all the switches and rotary controls, potentiometers if applicable. Then we test them fully on the bench, on their own power supply, on a bench grade power supply, with an Audio Precision System 1 audio test analyzer. And that allows us to see any further issues that are in the module. They're corrected at that time. We test the module fully to original Neve factory specifications on the Audio Precision System 1, then correct any issues that may arise from that testing. So there's several rounds of testing and investigation, several rounds of listening, burn-in over a period of 24 to 48 hours where the module remains on with signal flowing through it. Then we repeat all the tests, make sure there's no further issues or nothing that's going to show up if you're doing a really long session. And then once that's completed for all of the channel amplifier and group routing modules, we continue the work with the console frame. After it's all been cleaned up, we ensure that all the grounding integrity is proper. Often over the years, and even at the Neve factory, they did some, again, we'll use the term interesting grounding techniques. They often violated their own rules, which are clearly printed in the back of the manuals that ship with every console. And over the years, often to solve unrelated but similar sounding in terms of, grounding issues, which are always hum or noise or RF pickup. Neves are very, very sensitive to that sort of thing, and very, very sensitive to having a clean power installation at the studio and an overall very clean installation at the studio. And this is due to their single-ended power supply design. They run on plus 24 volt only. And that inherently has a lot less rejection for issues. Your ground becomes very, very important. So we go through all that in the console frame and the wiring, and there's some upgrades and tricks that we do there as well to really lower the noise floor that can really help with the console's performance in the modern digital recording environment. Because it used to be, of course, since everyone was recording to tape, it didn't matter as much. The console was always going to be quieter than the tape machine was, and that's what they shot for at least. And Neves were, even from the factory, some of the quietest consoles that were built as a commercial product. But over the years, degradation in connections occur. All that stuff gets gone through and corrected, upgraded. And it really results in a tremendously performing console. One of the main things that you really find when you extensively test an old Neve or old Neve channel amplifiers like a 1073, when they're really properly restored and properly working, they grossly and handily exceed the original specifications.